friend. The Mystical American Patriots Society is transmitting to you from beneath 4 million cubic feet of solid granite, in the burning heart of the Yellowstone caldera. This is a variety program for normal sandwich-eating Americans with some concerns about living in a deranged, post-Christian technocracy. So, keep your third eye on the sky and your ear to the ground, as Sumo and Smokestack connect your main brain vein to a higher plane. Are you ready? Stand by.
When the moon is in the 7th house and Jupiter aligns with Mars, then peace will guide the planets and love will steer the stars. This is the dawning of the age of Aquarius. Age of Aquarius. Harmony and understanding, sympathy and trust abound. No more falsehoods and derisions, golden living dreams of visions, mystic crystal revelation. I don't really know. I get lost after that first part. Good evening.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you there, Sumo?
Pretty good. I'm feeling good this evening. I slept in this morning and I didn't make our original appointment.
But we carry on.
Yeah.
Is there someone? Are you in a bathtub?
I am in the bathtub. I'm trying a new format where you podcast from the bathtub.
Awesome.
Because I was cold. I spent a lot of time outside today.
Yeah.
And I thought I just want to sit in hot water.
Mm-hmm.
So here I'm in the bathtub. Maybe the acoustics of this room are better too. I don't know.
There's a little natural reverb coming through.
Yeah, because I'm in the. This isn't my normal bath. I'm a bath person.
Really?
There's not a lot of women are bath people, although less so than usual. But I am a bath person, which is unusual for men.
Mm-hmm.
Though it shouldn't be, like the Romans, they had the public bathhouse.
Yep.
Here we go. The Japanese still do this. So I treat my bath sort of like a sauna. I like to sit in the bath for a long time, make it very hot. Maybe have a snack.
Nice.
While you're in the bath. I don't light candles or anything much, but I will have, maybe you make an omelet and you eat it in the bath.
It's funny you bring this up. The other day I was shopping Japanese ofubo tubs that are fired by a wood-fired heater so that I can put it out on my back porch and just sit up to my neck in almost boiling water.
Yeah, the tradition of just taking a bath. Because I've said this to people before, and people go, they have this, because the quote-unquote elites have pushed this narrative to them to debase the people, where they think that, they say baths are dirty.
Yeah. Like
my roommate in college used to call, because I would take baths all the time in our apartment. And he would be mad at me because I would take up the only bathroom for several hours. Right? And he would counter and say, baths are like filth soup. And I would say, no, baths are what aristocrats take. And I am a spiritual aristocrat.
Right on.
Right? You have a nice, lovely bath.
Mm-hmm.
I can get some nice soaps. You should also have some nice soaps.
Yep.
Men have a lot of catching up to do to women in the realm of hygiene. All right, I have some oatmeal and honey soaps here that I use. I prefer. I recommend highly solid shampoo.
I don't use shampoo.
If you're gonna use shampoo, solid shampoo, like comes in a bar, like a bar of soap, and you rub it on your head, right?
Yep.
And in my case, on my face for the beard, and then also solid conditioner. Everything there should be no liquids other than the water. Of course. The water is the only liquid in the bath. This is a thing a lot of people don't realize, is that your all of these liquids they try to pawn on you are degrading your bathing experience. You want solid soap, solid shampoo, solid conditioner, and if there's anything else you need, try to see if there's a solid form of that as well.
You kind of sound like
you so much.
You sound right now like Jack D. Ripper talking about preserving the integrity of your precious bodily fluids.
Well, he may have been onto something.
Yeah. Well, I think he was.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not your bodily fluid so much as it just is a better experience.
Right.
And a shower is what hurried people do.
Indeed.
A shower is what you do when you're late for work and you're worried someone's going to be mad at you. Mm-hmm. But a person that takes a bath, they may fall asleep in the bath.
I've done that. Worried. That's great.
It's fantastic to fall asleep in a bathtub.
Yeah.
It is the best. And you get the hot water, and it's just... sometimes I will also put on like a space heater, because I don't have a full sauna in my house, unfortunately. But I'll put on a space heater to make the room hot also. Mm-hmm. And get nice and sweating. So then it is like a sauna.
That sounds awesome.
I also, crucially, now this is not my setup right now because I'm not in my normal bath. But really, if you can in any way afford it in your house, you need to tear apart your current bathroom and replace it with separate shower, separate tub. If you have the tub shower combo.
Oh, the combos are terrible.
The combo is the worst. I mean, I know that it makes sense from an economic perspective and like a space saving perspective, but the showers are a utility thing. You need the shower when you just need a quick thing.
Yep.
But then the bath should be separate, and it should have lots of room for like it should be made so that you can spread out in the bathtub.
We have a bath shower combo, and I can't even fully immerse myself in it. It's like sitting in a puddle.
Yeah,
it's awful.
It's not good. When my wife and I first were married, we were looking at houses, and there was this one house that I wanted to get, but she did not want to get and talked me out of it because she said it would never have resale value. Because the owners of this house had done some interesting design decisions that I appreciated. Like one was the kitchen was on the upstairs. Like you walk into the house.
Interesting.
And then it's like, where's the kitchen? Oh, yeah. It's upstairs. That's a bit weird. But then the other big difference they made is they had turned one entire bedroom into a large extended bathtub.
What?
Which I had never seen. Like they had taken, the sort of like a swimming pool where you put down those waterproof things, but they'd done that with like the poured marble all around what was basically the size of a small bedroom.
Yep.
And it had several faucets, spigots, so you could fill this up and basically have a full bath. It was very strange.
Cool.
And she was probably correct about it not having resale value. Also, the closets that had like 70 outlets on the wall was a little suspicious. Mm-hmm. Made you think it was maybe like a grow house or something.
This does sound a little weird.
Yeah, there was a statue of a transparent elephant in the back. I don't know. Probably would have had bad juju, bad karma if we'd have got that house. But I was like, oh, where else are you going to find a bedroom bathtub?
Yeah.
And so, but I still sometimes am upset we didn't get that house.
I'm sure.
But she was probably right from an economics perspective.
You have no idea how close I came this month to getting a bunch of cinder block and building a giant soaking tub in my garage. And like lining it with shotcrete. I was this close.
Yeah,
I promised my son to build a... Go ahead.
You're always either are or on the verge of doing some radical housing experiment with yourself.
Yeah. Well, that was a problem.
That may extend for years.
Others. Yeah.
Like it just may go on, and you're like, "Is this ever going to resolve?"
Yes, true.
And then like my dad did that when he decided when I was in middle school, high school, we moved into a house, and he decided he was going to dig a basement in the house after the house was already there.
Interesting.
More or less. I mean, we had planned a base, but it kept like leaking.
Uh-huh.
And so then for like a while, he would just be appearing in and out of the house carrying buckets of dirt from inside the house and dumping them outside the house.
Yeah.
As though to the neighbors he was tunneling.
Sure.
Which is what it would have appeared like. And when it would rain for some periods of time, this entire thing would just fill like a giant mud hole.
Yeah.
So
whatever, how did he resolve that? I mean, that sounds like a tricky problem.
It took a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
Some water pumps.
Yeah.
And some interesting waterproofing methods.
Uh-huh.
But he shares that with you. You will also go on these ambitious housing project and then sometimes they just hang around for a while. Sometimes they don't.
Your description of me is startlingly accurate.
Yeah. Well, you're just one of those. You're which I admire, which is you say, should we do this? Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you never have an idea and then say, oh, but I shouldn't do that.
Well, my kids were asking me to build them a treehouse, and I told them I would start it this month, and what I have begun building can only be described as an elevated fortress.
Right, because you're not going to just build a room for them to hang out in. No. That would be silly. That needs to be something that they can escape to in the event. It needs to be like a tree-safe room.
Yeah.
Obviously.
It's going to have multiple levels.
Right. It can't just be the simple thing, right?
No, it cannot.
Maybe it needs a fire pole.
Mm-hmm.
All that. I mean, you can't go 20%. You got to go 100%. Which I admire. That is bath mentality.
Yeah, yeah.
Because people that sit in a bath all day, they have a lot of big dreams.
You get to thinking in the bathtub.
You get to thinking that this is where you have all of your best thoughts. If you are not having philosophical insights, you're not bathing enough. You don't need LSD. You don't need mushrooms. You don't need ayahuasca. You just need to take baths.
Hear, hear.
You know? I mean, if you want to, whatever. But just take more baths and use solid soaps and shampoos, and it'll just change your life. Change your life. Which is why a lot of people come to us for advice, like, for instance, Milo's husband.
Yeah, about that.
So, listeners...
Do you have that teed up?
I do. Listeners, we had an interesting development. Someone who appears to be Milo Yiannopoulos' I guess now ex-husband, has emailed into the show.
Give a little background on what's going on with Milo in case not everybody knows who he is.
Right. So if you don't know, I'm sure most of our listeners know Milo. But anyway, in 2015, 2016, Milo was a conservative firebrand, a provocateur, right? He would go around giving these lectures at campuses at universities and appear on news stations. And he was very well-spoken, and he was a nice troll, and he could really dismantle arguments that the left had pretty easily. And he garnered a lot of dislike for that. A lot of hate. Look at a lot of riots, even. Not necessarily just dislike, but some riots, as you do.
You've left out a key detail in your description of Milo.
I'm getting there. Okay. And also Milo he had a shield, a social justice shield of flaming homosexuality.
Indeed.
Because in the progressive stack of oppression, I guess at the top at the current moment would be maybe a black trans gay Jewish midget. That's like
Behold your new king.
That's like that's like royal in the oppression. Like he has, and gay men are really sort of not. They're like the bottom rungs these days. Like a gay man is just like, oh, you're just gay,
right?
Psh, what? Why aren't you having breast implants and taking hormones if you want to be taken seriously?
Right.
Isn't it strange how we wrap back around to because it always does. It's like, you got to be gay, and it's like, but actually, to be gay enough, you have to be a woman, and then you have to be attracted to men, so you got to be straight.
Wait.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like you can't just be gay. It's like, no, you gotta. It's like in some Islamic countries where they're like, oh, you're homosexual. Oh, that just means that you were born a woman, and then they make you transition.
They do that?
Are you aware? Yeah. In some Islamic countries, the way they interpret is that being trans would be a test from God, and then they would be like, okay, well, it just says don't be gay, but if you become a woman, then it's straight. Which I think a little bit of a mental gymnastics, but whatever. But see, we're starting to do that here too. It's like, you can't just. But anyway, it's still somewhere on the progressive stack of like people that are oppressed.
Well, it made him extra spicy because he was flamingly gay. I mean, he was
flamingly gay and
11
a Catholic.
out of 10.
And a Catholic, which is not a huge contradiction these days. Let's be fair.
Yeah.
I mean, that is being a gay priest or a gay Protestant pastor is like one of the most common ways to be a pastor is to be gay. It's a lot like being a conservative senator. You just also are gay, and then you like Matt Gaetz, who is up there. Everyone likes him, and he's got his hair. And then he also, strangely, as a 32-year-old man, adopted a boy from Puerto Rico.
Can we please not go here?
An adolescent boy from Puerto Rico.
I'm begging you,
please,
no.
Because he cares. Because he cares a lot. And he was worried as a 31-year-old single, unmarried man, and still now as a 40-something-year-old single, unmarried man. He did what most single, unmarried men do, is they develop an intense concern about orphan children in Puerto Rico. And you go and adopt them to give them a better life. And that is what he did. And his name is Nestor. And he said, this is Nestor. And then, or like Josh Hawley, who in his dorm room had a big picture of a male model shirtless holding a baby.
Are you kidding me?
No, because he was so against abortion, he said. He was so against abortion, that was him saying like, this is a man saving a baby. Now, yes, he is shirtless and chiseled and in black and white with like gelled hair. But this is not anything. That doesn't imply anything about me, Josh Haley. That just means that I'm pro-life. See? And so just like
Dude.
It's very easy to be a GOP senator or congressman and be gay. It's also very easy to be a prominent Christian thought leader, or pastor or priest or bishop, and be extremely gay. There's no contradiction at all there. So that really wasn't even surprising that he was Catholic. But it was a bit of a wrinkle. And he was also Jewish, which was the...
Are we back on Milo? Milo is Jewish?
We're on the Milo. Icing on the cake. He was a gay man who was also Jewish, who was also a Catholic, whose boyfriend, then soon to be and became husband, was a black man. So you couldn't throw the homophobe arrow at him very well.
Yep.
You couldn't throw the racist at him very well. You couldn't throw the Nazi at him very well because he was a Jew. Though they tried them all. And so he had this sort of shield of identity force field.
Yeah.
That he could ward off attacks. And it made him very effective. Now, what they eventually got him with, that weird little McMuffin guy from Utah.
Evan McMullen.
Yeah, who was like briefly considered as like he would be something, but of course he was never going to be any top elected official. Certainly never president because he's under 6 foot tall.
Yeah, you can't have that.
And he's bald. Even Joe Biden, not Joe Biden, Barack Obama knows that. You know, hear what he said that about Mayor Pete. Did you see that?
That he's too short?
Yeah, he made some comment. He goes, "Oh, he's too short and he's gay. He won't get elected." He's right, because Barack Obama's not a dummy, and that's why Joe Biden hangs on to every last scrap of hair that he has, because America has not elected a bald man since television. Before television, we elected a lot of bald men because a lot of men of the age to be president are bald.
Yep.
After that, not a single one. And we think that we make rational decisions and not just judge people on how they look.
Well, I mean, women do vote.
Well, yeah. That's true.
I'd vote for a bald guy, just saying.
Yeah. So there you have it. And so Milo was but now Milo has but McMullen or McMuffin, or I can never remember his name, the guy from Utah.
Yes.
He dug up an old video of Milo having what would you call it?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Well, this is what got him eventually canceled. Because he had his shield, which protected him from the other arrows of cancellation. Mm-hmm. But the chink in his armor was this video, where they dug up an old video of him having an intellectual discussion about the age of consent and what it should be.
Ooh, no.
And he argued that it should be maybe a little lower, because when he was sexually starting out in life, he said, "I was younger than 16. And I felt like it was my decision. I felt like I did consent." And other people said, "You were groomed." And he said, "But I don't think I was." In his British way, he was also British, by the way. He was this tornado of messed up identities that didn't match. So he had this British accent. And he also then said that he was at a Hollywood party one time with some boys who he said, quote, were very young. What that means, I don't know. Could be 18, could be 17. Could be, no one knows, right? It's unclear. But they dug that up and they painted him as a pedophile excuser. Mm-hmm. And then that got him canceled. And no one stood up for Milo, despite him having gone to bat for them, which I did feel was wrong. And he also has expressed being jaded about that. And he sort of disappeared and was shunted off for the past 4 or 5 years to the sidelines. You can still find him if you looked, but he wasn't front and center, right?
Right.
So what he does to come back into the limelight is he announced that he was coming out as straight, having already married his husband.
I think the term he used is ex-gay.
Yeah, he's going to be ex-gay. Yeah, right, because that's not the same as straight, I suppose.
And he's consecrating his life to St. Joseph. Right,
which is a good thing. I support him in this, right? It's all good. Mm-hmm. But it does leave some hanging. One of the problems with getting out of a problem is that when you leave, there's no clean break.
Yeah.
And so he was in the position of having this husband, who I suppose he has now had to unhusband. He hasn't said what's going on in that realm.
Okay.
But I think that the husband may not feel the same way that Milo does. Just for any of you gay men out there that are listening, and I know there's a lot of you. If you marry a guy who claims to be really into his Catholic faith but also gay, it may, if he's serious, come back around eventually to mess up your relationship.
Yeah.
Just saying that could have been a potential red flag for this fellow in choosing somebody. But, whatever. What do I know? I'm not the gay Dr. Phil or whatever.
You are now.
I am the gay Dr. Phil. That's right. This is the gay Dr. Phil show. And we're going to teach you about choosing a life partner. No. So anyway, someone that did not, How would you even say it?
What was the writer's pseudonym?
So we got an email to our website, a comment, a question, and he named himself Tall Hot Chocolate. Remember, Milo's husband is a black man.
Yeah.
And it didn't give any more than that, but the question leads one to suspect it is written by Milo's husband, ex-husband now or something.
We're not sure.
Now I put this at there's a high odds that this is one of our other listeners just trolling us.
Could be Chungus.
Could be anybody.
Yeah.
Could be, but there's also a slim. I mean, this is the sort of show that Milo would find and listen to. Yeah. I suspect Milo's probably a listener. Hello, yeah. Milo.
Hey, Milo.
But also, we are still a young show and don't have the hugest of audiences. So the odds are, in that sense, against it. Mm-hmm. But stranger things have happened. We're going to talk about some really strange things that have happened in this show. So maybe it is really him. And he asked us for some advice on how to deal with this situation. And so for the sake of that, I'm going to treat it as though it is really him and not a troll. And I don't actually know his real name because Milo was very hush-hush and private about it, and I didn't dig. I'm sure it's out there on the internet if you look. But, which I respect. You know, you don't want your family members to be involved in your e-drama, right?
I do.
That's true. So anyway, Tall Hot Chocolate asked us this question via email. He said, my husband recently joined a church and demoted me to housemate. I think he's just doing it for attention since the media has been ignoring him for a couple of years. Can Sumo comment on the process of walking out repentance among the papists? What kind of steps should we expect to see Milo take to prove that this is real and that I just need to move on? So that's it, end quote. So yeah, that is a tough thing, I imagine, to be demoted to housemate. I'm not sure what he means by the process of walking out repentance among the papists. I don't know what working. Maybe that was supposed to be working out.
I think so.
Work. Okay, that makes more sense. Walking out repent. Now, is it possible that Milo was just doing this for attention since the media has been ignoring him for a couple of years? Yes. Yes, Milo's husband. I think that is a possibility. I also sort of thought that when I heard that. I said, someone's looking for a bit more 15 minutes. They weren't satisfied with their first 15 minutes, and now they want their second 15 minutes of fame. I had that suspicion. I was a little cynical, right? I said, maybe that's all he's doing. This is a way to get back in the limelight. Clever way, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that clever. You know, if you want internet points these days, just declare you're a different sexuality for a brief time and then go back or whatever.
Maybe he's prepping for a presidential run.
Oh, yes, that would be very interesting. Excuse me, I'm moving around the bath. So that is a possibility. Tall Hot Chocolate. I agree with you. However, he also did seem, when he was running around in 2016, to take his faith genuinely. And when he was questioned about the conflict of being in a gay relationship and also claiming to be Christian and Catholic, which forbids that, he said, well, it's a thing I'm working on. He would say something like that.
Right. Like he didn't try to square the circle.
No, he didn't try to square the circle. He said, yeah, it's wrong, and what are you gonna do? Which I somewhat admire, because everyone is doing sins that are wrong.
Right.
And what are you gonna do? Like
he owned it, so it's worth something.
Yeah, so can Sumo comment on the process of working out repentance among the papists, or walking out repentance? I'm not sure. Sure. So I guess he's asking me because I am also in the Catholic Church. Well, I mean, in practice, the act of repentance is done when you confess it, and then it's over. Except that it's not. Now you have to keep from doing it again, or try. You gotta at least try. That's the main thing. Just just give it your best. So what steps should we see from Milo to prove that this is real, and that I just need to move on? I think he's going to have to refrain from any sort of
sodomy,
sexual relationship with you in any way. Right? Correct. I think he's going to have to really actually start treating you like a housemate. And he would probably, of his own accord, want to move out at some point when it became feasible. And yeah, that's going to be unpleasant for a lot of people. I know there's also a child involved, if I'm not sure. I think that this man, his husband had a child by a woman from a previous relationship and has brought he's like a teenager into this and lives with them, I think, if I remember correctly. So it's going to be just a mess. Yeah. If it's genuine, it's going to be a mess. And that's all I know to tell you. It'll be a mess in sort of the same way that that any other divorce is a mess, and that it's going to be unpleasant. And I'm sorry it's going to be unpleasant. And I hope everyone moves on for it and gets closer to God in the aftermath. So just, yeah, if he's genuine, he's going to follow through on it. And I think this is going to be hard for Tall Hot Chocolate to judge, because I'm sure Milo has their whole relationship said, this is wrong, but let's go. So if it's in a moments of temptation, he may do the same thing in the future. So it's gonna just have to wait and see. I said check in this time next year and see what has happened, and then we will know. Thank you for listening, by the way.
Yeah, don't be a stranger, Tall Hot
Don't
Chocolate.
be a stranger,
We'd like to hear from you again.
Yeah, we'd like to hear from you again. Maybe you come on the show sometime.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Maybe we have a good time. So yeah, that is my that's my advice as gay Dear Annie, or gay Dr. Phil.
Yeah, I like gay Dr. Phil better. That's pretty good.
Well, I said it, but I mean that's just sort of Dr. Phil.
Yeah, good point.
I'm just kidding. I don't think Dr. Phil is gay. I don't think so. And I sort of like Dr. Phil when he attacks people for fat acceptance. Sure, yeah, legit. He'd be like, no, he just like, it's unhealthy. It's unhealthy. He just says, I wish I could do a Dr. Phil voice, but yeah. So that's what I have to say to Milo's husband. Do you want to add anything, or do you think we handled that well? I don't. We try to help people on this show. One thing that'll help your relationship, first of all, one thing that'll help your processing this and you going on to whatever's next, and your walk with God is baths.
Like, I thought you were going to say something like prayer.
Well, but you will find that if you take baths, you will pray.
Oh.
If you sit in the bathtub for a while, and listen, gays are already used to bathhouses. They know this sort of thing. But I'm just saying do it by yourself, because you want the silence of the bathtub.
Yeah.
You want the silence of the bathtub, and you want the heat, and you want to sweat, and you want to just be alone with your thoughts. And then if you're alone with your thoughts long enough, that's also the same as being alone with your demons. And you got to wrestle with your demons. When I take a bath, I'm really sort of doing the same thing as St. Anthony, who went to live in a cave for 50 years by himself.
You just do it in sweaty, short
I do
intervals.
it in luxury.
You're right. Okay.
I'm a luxury hermit for brief periods of time. I don't need to go live in a cave and sit on a dirt floor and be nasty. That was his path from God. My path has a lot of cinnamon aroma.
Periodic luxury hermit.
Yeah, my path has a lot of lavender scentedness to it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's a path that God has given to me. Some people he says go sit in a cave. Some people he says, why don't you go have a nice bath, and just we'll talk for a while. And so that's what I think that you should do is you should take up bathing. Don't do the shower thing anymore when you can help it, and just sit there and think. You know. So yeah, we've already helping people. I mean, we just started and we're already solving problems.
Yeah. Well, let us know what you think, Tall Hot Chocolate. Don't be a stranger, buddy.
Yeah. A few things before I get into the main thrust of today's episode. I was listening to that the previous episode of Boiler Room podcast, which is the flagship episode on the ACR Alternate Current Radio Network.
Yep.
And it's from a few weeks ago. I was catching up, because I got behind, and they were talking about that during the snow apocalypse of Texas. They were talking about the mayor that got canned because he made that tweet that said, "We don't owe you anything. We're not going to give you any help."
Yeah. That guy was in Colorado, I think, but same.
Oh, okay. Colorado.
Event.
I'm sorry. Yeah. And they were going, there were various good takes. Everyone in Boiler Room always has good takes.
Oh, definitely.
Smart crowd about it. But I was just sitting there thinking, he's sort of right. Because when he said that, I was sitting there thinking, I used to play a lot of SimCity. And you would sit there. Do you ever play SimCity?
Mm-hmm.
And you'd be like, you try to make it beautiful and nice, and then your population would be like, the taxes are too high, and you'd say, oh, okay, well I'll cut down some taxes, and then they'd say, but now the schools aren't good, and you say, oh, well okay, well I'll cut some funding from the parks, and they say, rah! And then you would try to say, well, okay, we'll increase the taxes over here. And they go, we're leaving businesses. We're moving to a cheaper place. And it was basically the computer was programmed to be like the populace of America to constantly say, we want everything for free. And they would just tell you that over and over again until you push the tornado button.
Yeah.
To send, or the hurricane button to light your city on fire.
Which turns out that's probably a real thing.
Yeah, they had the heart button program.
Yep.
And I was sitting there thinking that mayor, I was like, yeah, I can't blame him. I can't, if you're a public official in America, at some point, I feel like if you're honest, you just have to sort of start hating the populace.
Yeah. Because
they just ask for everything and want it to cost nothing. And everyone's like, cut the budget, but not my thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm angry that we're spending so much, but don't cut that thing that I like. And then you probably just develop this. It's sort of like these blood-soaked monsters that run Congress and the presidency and stuff. It's sort of like they're inevitable. Because you probably get in there like a fresh-faced senator. You're like, I'm going to change things. And then all everyone ever does is yell at you. And then you're like, when there's a natural disaster, you're like, yeah, take that. Take that, take that, you meat piles. You gross, go to Jack in the Box and meat piles. I want healthcare and also to eat Burger King. And then you just shoosh. And you're like, then they get mad at you. And you're the mayor. And you're like, I can't turn the power back on. And then you say, they tweet at you and you say, I don't owe you anything. And it probably just feels so good in that moment just to yell at them and tell them finally what you really want. And then he has to leave, obviously. But I was sort of like, I felt him.
You remember that old picture of the wallaby that gets into the box of donuts and eats them all? And it's just laying in the donut box covered in jelly?
Yeah.
And he's like, do your worst. I've already won. I feel like that's what that mayor felt like after unleashing that tweet storm.
Yeah. So I sort of liked him. But so that was let's go listen to Boiler Room. That was my take. I wasn't there to comment. But that was my way behind take. The other thing is I want to talk about you remember Nurse Tiffany Dover Potts?
Oh yes.
Who had the vaccine and then fainted, and then there was speculation she died.
Yeah.
And then they was like, no, she didn't die, and then deleted the post, and they said she's safe at work, and they deleted the post.
Yep.
And she was off Instagram for like months. Well, did you see that she recently made another post?
No.
It was on Instagram, and her post was this. It was at like a ski resort in the snow. And the thing about it is, it's very unclear that this isn't just a picture from a previous, because she's been to ski resorts before.
Okay.
Right? Like that was one of the things she did. And she would go skiing. And so a lot of people are saying this is an old picture, but that is not what the thing about it is. It's an unverified like picture of like, is this from now? But the caption is, "See you on the other side of paradise." Which I thought someone's just messing with us now. Like they're just ramping up the psyop to 11. Because like she disappears, then she makes one cryptic post, "See you on the other side of paradise."
Oh like, man.
They just love to mess with us. And at some point it gets a little funny. I mean, I don't even get mad at them anymore. And that's another thing you gotta do. You gotta. It's upsetting when everyone around you is a normie.
Yeah.
You know, it can be, but you just gotta don't try not to be angry with them. It's okay. They're just everyone's at a different stage in the process of waking up and. You remember, it's like in the Matrix. A lot of people are dependent upon the Matrix, and they'll fight to the death to defend it from people that want to.
The steak tastes great, man.
Huh?
The steak. You remember he's eating the steak, and he's like,
"Yeah, the steak tastes great."
Yeah.
Look, man, the steak tastes good, and the steaks do taste good sometimes. But so you just, it's okay. Don't be angry with them, because we're gonna drop some red pills today that are so intense.
Awesome.
You're gonna be like Neo. Remember how Neo was out of the Matrix, but then he still had Matrix powers?
Yeah.
And that was like a hint that he was actually still in the Matrix. Like it was a level like, oh, you thought you woke up, but now you're just in like the level of the Matrix we give people that want to get out of the Matrix to pacify them, but you're still inside, right? Now we're about to do that. We're going on levels. Look, I'm just saying, flat Earth isn't crazy enough. That's the problem with it. That's the problem with the flat Earth. I gotta turn on some more hot water real quick.
Okay.
My water's getting cold. Hold on. So, have you ever heard of Randall Carlson? Can you hear me over the water?
I'd rather like go back and post and edit the refill out.
Just let the water run. Do you know? I'll put the microphone close to my face. I hope I don't drop it in the bath. Okay. Have you heard of Randall Carlson? I've mentioned him on the show before.
It's not ringing a bell.
Okay, so Randall Carlson is what would you call him? He's a renegade scholar.
Okay.
Renegade scholar. All right, and he is also a master builder, an architect, a general esoteric weirdo, a genuinely smart man who's done a great deal of research, and asterisk, a Mason. He's in the Masonic Lodge.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So take that for what you will. If you distrust all Masons off the top of the bat, and maybe there's reasons to do so, then take all this with a grain of salt. But my experience is that in at least the lower levels of the Masonic lodges is just a drinking club.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but Randall Carlson has done extensive research, and you can He can back up. Randall Carlson has his receipts. That's what I like about him.
Gotcha.
You say, "Is this true?" And he's like, "Boom, boom, 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 boom. Source. Math. Picture. Right? Like he did all this great work on. That's better. Now it's nice and hot again. He did all this great work on catastrophism and the great floods of North America. Mm-hmm. And he goes out to the boulder fields of Colorado and whatever, and he's just documenting them. And he says, "Now, how can we account for these giant stones that are not part of the bedrock of this place? They're clearly a different kind of stone, but they are part of the bedrock 2,000 miles north, and they're just sitting on top of the soil." And he's like, "How do you account for that?" Right? And he has all these, and then he will do that. He looks at satellite imagery, and he makes a very compelling case for like a massive flooding event.
Yeah, man.
From the melting of the ice caps during the Ice Age. At the Younger Dryas, what they call it. And his belief, and he backs it up with a lot of evidence. I mean, it's not slam dunk, right? If it were slam dunk, then it would be more accepted. Mm-hmm. But with a lot of evidence, both primary evidence and circumstantial evidence, and also like evidence from the world's cultures and their histories, that at some point in history, there was a major flooding event, and he believes the most likely cause of this is a comet or asteroid striking the North Pole during the last ice age, which would have ended the ice age by basically insta-melting the polar ice cap. Cool. And sort of like someone pouring a bucket of water over the Earth's head. Mm-hmm. And just sea levels rise, rivers foam. I mean, it's just all becomes a big problem. That he believes is what a lot of these mythological things are talking about. But another thing that he does in connection with that is he is a man well versed in sacred geometry and sacred numbers.
Okay.
And I don't know if our listeners are used to numerology. Probably some of them are. A lot of them probably think it's nonsense because a lot of it is. It's a lot of numerology is like a lot of modern astrology, where it's just some white chick trying to be spiritual, and she couldn't fit in at the herbalism class, and she wasn't bendy enough for yoga, so she took up astrology. And that's all it was.
Right.
And same thing. And if you can't fit in with the astrology girls, then you go become a numerology lady, and that's like your fourth tier down. I mean, there's some ladies I follow on Twitter who are numerologists, and they try to make it all high, but they don't know what they're talking about. But I always give them a like because I feel sad for them, because they're like, it's like they didn't fit in with the cheerleaders. And they didn't fit in with the popular girls, and then and now they're sitting at the cafeteria table with the goth chick.
Yeah. And
not the hot one, the fat one. And so they're just like the fat one that goes to Hot Topic.
Hot Topic.
And so that's where they are, and I feel sad for them, and so I always give them a like, and sometimes a retweet, even though what they're saying is nonsense.
Yeah.
But what Randall Carlson is saying is not nonsense. And what we're going to go through his research is that actually the units of measure that we use every day, at least if you're American and use the correct stuff,
yep,
from time, distance, weight, all that, has deep historical, mythological, and dare I say, cosmological significance you're not even aware of.
Interesting.
Now, if you're a Europore and you're using meters, first of all, stop. But second of all, I'm sorry. Because I say this without really exaggeration. I'm joking a little bit, but not much. The United States has retained its religiosity, some of it misguided, for sure.
Yeah.
But has retained a sense of religiousness that has been drained out of Europe and Canada, because the U.S. never went committed to the metric system.
Sounds legit.
And people are like, No. Okay, let's start. Okay. 1 solar day. How many hours is that?
That'd be 24 hours.
Correct. You're so good. You're already there.
Thank you.
24. All right. How many minutes is in a day? 24 times 60, 1,440 minutes. 1440. Now, right off the bat, to understand symbolism and numerology, and the symbol of is that you have to understand basically 2 things about it. One is that the symbol of the number is unaffected by its order of magnitude. So in other words, any symbolic number multiplied by any number of times by 10, like raised to multiplied by 10 3 times, is the same number symbolically. So 144 and 1440 and 144000000 is all the same number symbolically.
Okay, got it.
Okay? Like 12, 120, and 12,000, same number. Because it's just multiplied with the same number of zeros. Because, see, they thought in this way that there's only 9 numbers. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then 10 is just 1 and 0 together. Right? And so 12 in the numerological mind, which is not a rare thing. This is the mode of thought of almost every ancient culture in the world, which is why, because for many of them, we adopted the Hindu Arabic alphabetical numerological system, where we have different symbols for the numbers 1 through 9 and different symbols for the letters. But in like ancient Hebrew, ancient Greek, many others around the world, the same symbols are used. So like A would also be the number 1, right? And B would be the number 2. So what they would do is they would say, well, there's only these 9 numbers, and so in some sense, when you add them together, they reduce down to, so like 12 would be 1 plus 2 is 3. Or 314 would be 3 plus 1 plus 4 would be 8. Okay. Does that make sense? Yep. And if it was a big number and it summed to a 2-digit number, like say 8 plus 8 is 16, or that doesn't make sense because you already had started. If you said, say you did 8 plus, I don't know, so you say it summed to some number like 16, then you would say, okay, and then you reduce that further down, 1 plus 6 is 7.
Okay,
does that make sense? So you just you would do that process till you get down to the single digit that represented that thing. Right. So understand this. So that there's only the 9 numbers. They are unaffected by the number of times they're multiplied by 10, the number of zeros in the end. Okay. And the other thing that is less important, but still will come up occasionally, is that sacred numbers, what I would call second order sacred numbers, are derived through multiplication and addition of other more primary sacred numbers. Okay. And this comes from geometry mostly. So like take a square. A square has 4 sides and therefore 4 angles, and each angle is 90 degrees. And the square, the triangle, the pentagon, and the circle are the 4 most elementary shapes. But by which I mean like they're sort of the prime numbers of shapes, because by the intersection, addition, and subtraction of these shapes, you can basically make any other shape. So like say you want a rectangle, okay, that's just 2 squares added together. Boom, rectangle. Diamond, right? Triangle sitting on top of another inverted triangle. Mm-hmm. And so on. And even like the super more complex polygons, if you just keep combining circles, triangles, and squares in clever ways, you can get to all of them. Okay. So they're sort of like the prime numbers of shapes. And so this idea of like multiplying, and the way they would account like what shape you would measure a shape, you'd say, well, like what really numerically, not just like visually, makes a square different from, say, a triangle. They'd say, well, a square has 360 degrees in it, and an equilateral triangle has, 180. Okay. Right? Yep. Because you would just measure the angles, and that would be like the measure of the sum of the angles would be like the shape, which is why they were always wanting to square the circle, which you turned out you couldn't do and caused a lot of people to commit suicide when they proved you couldn't do it, because that's where the phrase squaring the circle comes from, because a square has 360 degrees. A circle has 360 degrees, and therefore, in some sense, they sort of thought of them as the same.
Okay.
Like different faces of the same thing. All right, so a square is one of the prime shapes, right? It has 4 90-degree angles. Like we said, other sacred numbers are derived from the multiplication of these more simpler sacred numbers. So like there are 4 9s in a square, right? Because it's unaffected by the power. 90 is the same as 9. So 4 times 9 is 36. 9 4 times is 360. So 360 is also a sacred number. It's like a secondary sacred number. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the primaries go, okay, got it, right, okay. So again, 1 day, 24 hours, times 60, 1,444 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That 144, where do you see that connection? Well, that is the same number as the number of inches in a square, in a foot by foot, a square foot square.
Oh.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's on purpose. That's one of the reasons why everything in ancient cultures was base 12.
So they didn't just like measure some guy's foot or whatever. There's a lot of... We're unveiling the connections between all these things.
Correct. I mean, it was connected to the person's foot as well, but the reason they put 1,440 minutes in a day was because there was 144 square inches in a square foot. That's why they did it.
Oh.
Why? Because in a sense they're saying, and it's a weird way of thinking. It's not illogical, but it's weird because it's a mode of thinking that we've abandoned. But once you start to get into the flow of how it thinks, you go, oh, right, I see. And these stories start to come alive to you. Because you've got, so you've got these prime shapes, right? The circle, the square. And then the ancients are marking out 1 day as square.
Mm-hmm.
As we say in carpentry, like make something square. Is it square? Meaning like, is it good? Is it level? And so what they're saying when they made the day 1,444 minutes is the day is square. It's level. It's perfect. So you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Is that making sense? Okay. Okay. If we multiply by 60 again, because we got 144 minutes in a day times 60 number of seconds in a day, 86,400 seconds in a day. That number will also recur as we go through this. And I'm just laying out some numbers to start with, and then we'll show you where all they connect. A similar half day, which at an equinox is equally divided into day and night, right? Is 720 minutes, 60 seconds. So that's 43,200 seconds. Okay, so that was like time. So we move on to space. We already talked about the square foot. Cubic foot, 1,728 inches. Mm-hmm. Square yard, 12,096 inches. That could maybe arguably be the most important number, maybe, because that contains within it units of time, which are extremely important. Okay, so we talked a little bit about time, a little bit about space. Now we're going to go to geometry. Now again, I'm just laying out the ground rules here, and then then I think you'll start to see where they connect. Gotcha. So a circle, 360 degrees, right? Mm-hmm. Not coincidentally divided into minutes. I don't know, a lot of people aren't aware of that, but degrees are subdivided into minutes.
Okay. Yep.
Every arc of degree in geometry, every degree of arc, has 60 minutes of arc within it. And every minute of arc, again, has 60 seconds of arc within it. Mm-hmm. And this, you can see why they would make clocks as a circle, right? And so they're trying to, they're traversing the number of, like, sort of like time is a circle.
Yeah.
Okay. So in a full circumference of a circle, 360 degrees has 21,600 minutes of arc, 1,296,000 seconds of arc. Mm-hmm. Okay. So what did we just say? I said 1,296,000 seconds of arc. 129600. What did we just say was the number of inches in a square yard? 1296. 1,296. The number of inches in a square yard is the same as the number of seconds, arc seconds in a circle.
Interesting.
And that's on purpose. It's the same number raised by a factor of 1,000. And you might say to yourself, dividing a circle into 1,296,000 parts, that's super autistically fine subdivision of a circle, right? Like, why would they need to do that? Because for astronomy, they would sit there in the ancient days. Remember, as we've said on this show before, it's a basic tenet of maps that everything is star magic. Because the ancients would track the stars and the planets across the sky, and they would do so sitting in one place and measure very, very finely how far they moved across the arc of the dome of the sky.
Right.
And they would divide that up into... So they divided the circle of the motions of the planets that was possible into 1,296,000 parts, which is the same as the number of inches in a square yard, because they were literally doing this to see what was going on in the heavens, like what the gods were up to. Okay? So now here's where it starts to be sort of a mind breaker. So I said all these numbers, 1440, that's the number of minutes in a day. The number of 144 is the number of inches in a square foot. 8640, 43,200, 1728, 360, 1296. We said all these numbers. And the numerical way of, remember how I talked about you add them up?
Mm-hmm.
They all of them sum to 9.
Oh.
Example.
In the numerological method.
Correct. Like 1440, the number of minutes in a day, number of square, because the 0 always cancels. That's why it's the same symbolically. See, because when you add them together, they come to the same number. So 1440, which is the number of minutes in a day, or 144, number of inches in a square foot, is 1 plus 4 plus 4, 9. And also the square, right? So the square has 90-degree inches in each corner. 144 inches the number of minutes of the day, sum to the same number, 9. 86,400, the number of seconds in a day. 8 plus 6 plus 4 equals 18. Then 1 plus 8 equals 9.
Oh, man.
Uh-huh. The number of seconds in a half day, remember morning or evening, which on the equinox is the same, is 43,200 seconds. 4 plus 3 plus 2 is 9. And this is where the audience, we become that meme where the audience is the two astronauts looking at the Earth and the listeners going, wait, it's all 9, and I put a gun to their head and say it's always has been. Because that's 360. 3 plus 6 is 9. Cubic foot, 1,728. 1 plus 7 plus 2 plus 8 is 18. 1 plus 8 is 9. Cubic yard, which is the same as the number of arc seconds in a circle, 1296. 1 plus 2 plus 9 plus 6 is 18. 1 plus 8 equals 9. And they do that that was all done on purpose. And in fact, all of this sums to 9. Equilateral triangle. What do you get there, right? First of all, that's where the number 666 crops up in the first place. That's the first time you begin to see it, because the equilateral triangle has 3 angles of 60.
Oh, yeah.
Cut off the 0, 666.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then so 6. So how many angles is that total? Well, you have three of them of 60. 6 times 3 is 180. 1 plus 8 is, again, 9. Square 4 times 9, 360, again, 9. And so every polygon, as we discussed, can be described by the measure of the angles of the corners. So a pentagon, 5 angles, 108 degrees each time, right? Which means if you have 5 angles of 108 degrees, you have 540 degrees. 5 plus 4 is 9. It's true for all of them, all the time. That's pretty weird, and
Indeed.
That is not even something that they really invented. That's just what it is. That's just what the shapes work out to. You see? And 108, again...
Wait,
yeah, go ahead.
Wait, back on. So, what was the arbitrary number, the original arbitrary number that was selected, upon which all this was based, that someone figured out in each of these cases would work out numerologically to the number 9? I mean, was it 360 degrees?
It's unclear if it was they were starting with the right angle of 90 and a square and making it 4. Or if they were going with 360, which I'll tell you why. I'll go ahead and spoil it for you, is that the Babylonians believed that the year should be 360 days. They knew it was 365, but they thought that's wrong. And they had a reason for that.
Yeah.
That went back a long time. They believed, basically, that in their tradition, in their history, that a great cataclysm had messed up the year and added 5 days onto the orbit of the Earth.
Oh, weird.
Correct. So they would keep 2 calendars running simultaneously. And let me tell you, not just like the ancient Sumerians and Mesopotamians, but the Greeks would do this. The Mayans would do this on the other side of the Earth. They all kept 2 calendars, 360-day calendar, which was the sacred calendar, and then a secular calendar, which had the extra 5 days. And they all had some sort of system where they'd have 5 days pulled out of the year that were considered unlucky and just no one do anything. Right?
Okay.
Right? Because the Mayans, you think like, oh, well, maybe the Greeks just picked this up from the Sumerians. But no, the Mayans did the same thing. That's when you begin to go, wait a minute, where are they getting this idea from, right? Because they're unconnected at all, as far as we know. There's no triremes sailing from ancient Greece to Brazil. Sure,
yeah.
Right? Okay, so, and that 108 number degrees, which is the angles of the Pentagon, is also an important number because it's a lunar number. It's like, and take a guess what the alchemical element associated with the moon is.
I have no idea.
Just take a guess. It's a real element. It's like an element on the periodic table, but it's one they would have known about. And
silver.
Correct. Gold was the sun. Silver's the moon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the atomic weight of silver is 108, which is the same. Okay, so what if we add a dimension? So we talked about 2D shapes. What if we go to 3D shapes, like solids, not just shapes?
Okay.
All right, we considered the prime numbers of shapes, right? Now we're going to talk about the quote-unquote prime numbers of the 3D solids, which are also called the Platonic solids, or the regular polyhedra, if you want to get technical. Polyhedra is just fancy for multiple faces. So it's a shape with multiple faces, of which there are exactly 5. There are exactly 5 Platonic solids. And a polyhedra is a shape where each side is the same shape. So like a cube is the most obvious. It has the same identical square on every side.
Right.
A tetrahedron has the same identical triangle on every side. Right? And so you can make 5 of these before the shapes begin to not hold together very well when you have them the same size, the same shape every time.
Right.
Okay, so an equilateral triangle, make it a 3-dimensional solid, tetrahedron. Okay, so that's just 4 equilateral triangles. And we said that had 180 degrees in each triangle. Mm-hmm. Well, if you do that 4 times, you have 720 degrees. 7 plus 2, 9.
Oh, man.
I know. It's all 9. I'm going to shoot you in the back of the head. You're an astronaut. All right. On the cube, we have 6 faces. A square has 360 degrees in it. 6 times 360 means a cube has 2,160 degrees in it. 2 plus 1 plus 6 is 9. Octahedron, which is basically a 3D diamond, if you don't know what that looks like. It's like it sort of looks like a little bit like 2 tetrahedrons, one inverted on top of the other. What it is, here's what it is. It's that symbol that was above the characters if you play The Sims.
Yeah.
You know, when you're drowning them in the pool because you take out the ladder? And then you try to see how many graveyards you can have in the back, and you leave the child so that they cry all the time.
I didn't do that.
But that game, they have the The little sim symbol above their head. That's what an octahedron basically is.
Right.
Okay, so it's made of equilateral triangles. Octahedron has 8 of them. So we have 8 times 180 degrees, 1,440 degrees. 1 plus 4 plus 4, again, sums to 9, which is, again, the same number as the number of inches in a square foot and the number of minutes in a day. 1, 4, 4. Okay? And also is the square of 12, which is another like very common sacred number, 12, because it's the square root of that. It's 12. All right. What the ancients also realized as they began to do the math was that when you work up, like if you start with these primary shapes from geometry, these primary solids, you get these same numbers recurring over and over again. Like if you start with your math based on the geometry of these shapes, which is what they did, because they would they would do it for, I mean, mostly it was originally for geometry. Geo is about the earth. They were measuring the earth. They're building out cities. They were laying out, architecture. So they started with these shapes. And then they would begin to measure these shapes and try to figure out how do we use these shapes more effectively to like build stuff and like measure the solar system as it goes across the heavens. And so they took that as primary, and they said, well, if we start building our system up from this, these same numbers begin to happen over and over and over again, right? For instance, almost as though the universe was made of these numbers or hung upon these numbers. Which is why, for an example, the walls of the holy city described in the vision in the Bible in Revelations 21:17, quote, the angel measured the wall using human measurement, and it was 144 cubits thick. The wall was made of jasper. 144. Again, so the thickness of the walls of the holy city is the same as the length of a day. Also, how many people were redeemed from earth at the ending? 144,000.
Yeah.
Same number. And this is what I try to tell people. Like almost everyone is getting the weird stuff of like Revelations wrong because they don't know about astrology and numerology. Mm-hmm. And like they're just, if you don't have that, you're just not playing with a full deck. And it gets weird. The fourth solid is this one I have trouble pronouncing. It's an icosahedron, which is 20 faces, which is easy to anyone that's ever played Dungeons and Dragons. It's simply a 20-sided die shape.
Right.
Okay? It's 20 equilateral triangles put together. 20 times 180 equals 3,600 degrees. 3 plus 6 is 9. The final one is the dodecahedron, which is 12 pentagons put together. And Plato, in his dialogues, referred to the dodecahedron as, quote, the shape of the universe itself. Interesting. So a pentagon has 540 degrees. There's 12 of them. 12 times 40 equals 6,480. 6 plus 4 plus 8 is 18. 1 plus 8 is 9.
Gracious.
So, is it that a bit weird? And that gives you some grounding about how the ancient people thought, what they were trying to talk about, why they talked in this symbolic number way. Okay? Now we're going to bring it all together. Astrological time. And here's where we really start to say, oh, I see, history isn't what I thought. Okay, so we measure time based on years, more or less, right? And a year is one cycle around the sun. Feel free to jump in here at any time if I'm going too fast. I realize
I'm just like digesting this.
This is a lot to download. It's a lot to download.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, listeners. I'm sorry, Milo's husband, for overloading you in this time of trial. You sit in the bath while you listen to it. It'll help. All right. Astrological time is also based around something like years. It's based around what's known as the Great Year. Are you familiar with the Great Year?
No.
This is what is used in the astrological calendar and has been not just in modern chicks that weren't limber enough for yoga, back to the beginning of recorded history. So the Earth has 3 motions, basically. So it's got I'm helping flat earthers out here Because the flat earth movement comes from the fact that they can't see any way to have a mythological, metaphysical connection to the heavens under the model of the planet given to them by science.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So they're like, well, it has to. That's really where it comes from. And they're saying, I don't care if I look like a weirdo. I want to believe in God, and if that means any, but you don't have to, because you didn't go weird enough. We're gonna go beyond. If you thought people called you crazy before, we're about to take it a step before. But you're ready for it, and I believe in you. All right,
I'm ready.
So you had the great year. There are 3 motions of the Earth. One is it spins around on its axis, and that's what causes the day, right? Mm-hmm. Number 2, it goes around the sun. That's what makes the years. The less talked about, because it happens so slowly that it doesn't really affect our lives, is the precession about its axis. So the Earth leans a bit. Mm-hmm. Relative to the plane of the solar system, it's sort of tilted, which is why you have the seasons, right? Because as the Earth is tilted, it goes around. You get more or less sunlight, and that's also why the seasons are inverted. Because on the northern hemisphere, where everyone is right side up and right thinking and good, it is summer in July and winter in January, because the Earth is tilted. But the bottom half of the Earth, like in Australia, where everyone is backwards and mean and bad,
yes,
and upside down, they are leaning away from the sun, and so it's cold in July and it's warm in January. You see?
Yes.
And so, but that lean is not constant. It actually sort of rotates around. If you can imagine, draw a line through the poles of the Earth and imagine it's leaning, and then it rotates around to sort of make an hourglass shape.
Right. It's like a wobble in the...
Like a wobble.
Yeah.
But this wobble takes 29,500 years to finish. Or I'm sorry, 25,920 years. I had the numbers backwards. 25,920 years. So every 25,920 years, the Earth completes this cycle of rotating around its wobble. That's a long time. That's why we don't talk about it very much, because it doesn't change a lot during our lifetimes. But if you had a time machine and you could go back in time 1,300 years, like halfway through the cycle, or forwards 1,300 years, you would find that in the northern hemisphere, it was actually cold in July and warm in January, because the tilt had shifted. It had gone the other way. Does that make sense? So it's leaning one way, and then halfway through the cycle, it's leaning the other way. And when you get back around the full cycle, it's back to where it started.
Oh, so this isn't just a tiny wobble. This is a big...
No, this isn't a tiny wobble. The whole Earth is like rocking back and forth.
Oh, okay.
In a slow manner. And it appears to be, from the best we can tell, it's because of the moon. Mm-hmm. Right? It's because of the moon is causing this, mostly. It's right. I mean, all the planets pull on the Earth and have different gravitational, but the moon is the big one.
Okay.
So this 25,920 year cycle, what it means for us on Earth is that as the tilt of the Earth relative to the sun goes through, practically what it means is that the position of the sun as it rises during the vernal equinox and the other equinox as well, but it's usually measured by the vernal equinox. The position of the sun as it rises over the course of this great year, 25,920 years, the position of the sun during the equinox lines up with a different sign of the zodiac throughout the precession.
Okay.
Right? So at this moment in time, depending on who you ask, we're either at the tail end of the age of Pisces or the very beginning of the age of Aquarius.
Okay.
So we're moving towards the age of Aquarius, which is why the Fifth Dimension sang that lovely song in the 70s. Mm-hmm. Because they thought it would be this age of like harmony and light, right? Border's a bit gray, like where one age begins and the other age ends, which is why there's some disagreement. But we're definitely heading towards Aquarius if we're not already there.
Okay.
And over the course of the great year, as this precession goes, all of the signs of the zodiac will occupy that position in the sky as we sort of complete this grand rotation. Very slowly, right?
Right.
Okay. Right. So Yeah. Okay. So a few things that jump out at you about the great year. The first is, how in the world did they know that?
Indeed.
That is correct. That is what happens. We verified that with our modern astronomy. Now, we calculate today, our latest estimate is that it's 25,800 years. They said 25,920 years. First of all, that's not too big of a difference when we're talking about something that big.
Right.
Second of all, it's not clear that...
Okay, wait, stop.
Yeah.
Who's they, and how long ago has this been known by human history?
This has been known for the earliest records we have.
Okay.
And they would build...
The Great Year specifically.
Yes, and they would build structures, specifically monolithic structures, like the pyramids and Stonehenge and stuff, to reflect this cycle.
Right.
Okay, so they've known this for as long as we have recorded history. They said that they calculated it to be 25,920 years. Modern astronomers calculate it to be 25,820 years. 120-year difference. So A, that's super close. And B, we don't actually know if the precessional frequency of the planet is constant over the whole period.
Right.
So it's very possible that when they were measuring it, they were on the nose. And we're just slightly slower at this point in the precession history. And it seriously makes you think for a minute that sometime long, long ago, either someone was keeping records for long enough to note that this happened, like they were keeping astronomical star charts and said, hey, we're back around where we were 25,920 years ago. And like had that in the books. Or they had sophisticated science enough to figure that out.
I can't imagine any civilization lasting long enough to preserve records for that number of years in order to provide the data to just look at that and say, oh, we're back around to where we started.
I can't either. But when you start to think like, how did they know this? You begin to, there's a lot of it, like, you start to go, there's a lot more going on in the past than we realize. The other thing that you pick up on when you talk about the Great Year was that it was conceived of because they like, when I talk about the universe as fractal and this new language of fractals and like the same patterns repeating over and over again, that's not new. We're just rediscovering that. They also believe that way because they conceived of the Great Year as analogous to the regular Earth year, just on a larger scale. It had a spring, summer, a winter, and a fall. They divided the Great Year into fours. Each season of the Great Year governed by 3 of the 12 signs of the Zodiac. So, spring is Aries, Taurus, and Gemini. Summer is Cancer, Leo, and Virgo. Fall, Libra, Scorpio, and Sagittarius. And winter, which is what we're coming into, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. So we are, in astrological terms, either in the beginning or about to come into the long year. As they said in Game of Thrones, winter is coming. This is the dark winter. Isn't it weird that comes up like in popular culture as we're going into this?
Yeah.
Very strange. Symbolism happens. That's what you got. Like symbolism, just because it's written into the universe, it just pops up. No one has to make it happen. It's just winter is coming, and it is. Each season, because it's 1/4 of the Great Year, and 3 months of the Great Year, basically, is 6,480 years, 6,480 years, which again, of course, sums to 9. 6 plus 4 plus 8 is 18. 1 plus 8 is 9. Further, the Great Year has 4 equinoxes, symbolized by the 4 fixed signs of the Zodiac. Now, here's where something gets very interesting. The 4 fixed signs of the Zodiac, which symbolized the equinoxes of the Great Year, are the bull, the lion, the eagle, and the man. Do those sound familiar?
I've heard of all those creatures before.
Okay, if you're up fresh on your Bible reading, the bull, the lion, the eagle, and the man are the 4 faces on the cherubs noted in Ezekiel's vision.
Yeah.
The living creatures in Ezekiel's vision have 4 faces: bull, lion, eagle, and man. And additionally, the 4 gospel writers, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, were given the same symbol by the church in the early times. Matthew was the man, Mark a lion, Luke an ox or bull, and John an eagle. And those are the 4 Great Year equinoxes. Isn't that strange? Isn't that a bit too on the nose to have been an accident?
That's very weird.
Right? And again, of course, each season lasts 6,480 years, which not only sums to 9, but is the same measure. The measure of those angles is the same measure as the angles of the Dodecahedron, which Plato called the shape of the universe. So each season of the great year has the same number of angles as the Dodecahedron, which Plato, for some reason, called the shape of the universe. So, by the way, none of this is limited to biblical numerology or cosmology or Babylonian traditions or Mesopotamia's. No. So people in the Mesopotamian region focus their symbolism on the great seasons, 6,480, the Dodecahedron. Other cultures use the same system, but just focused on different links of the year, right? So some have a calendar based on a great month. Now, a great month would be, of course, 1/3 of the great season, which would be 2,160 years, which is the number of angles in the degrees of a cube. So the cube stacked to 4. You see how I'm saying? The same. Yeah. They realized what they saw was that this great year corresponded to the great, just as larger, more complex shapes could be built out of these more simpler shapes by adding them together. The great year, or larger constructs of time, were built out of and were analogous to mathematically simpler bits of time. Like 1 decand, which is 10 degrees of a circle, is 700 of the great year. 1 decand of the great year circle, 10 degrees, is 720 years, which is the tetrahedron, which is also 72 years, right? What is the average, over history, what is the average length of human lifespan? 72 years. 1 degree of the great year, 1 day. So basically, human life, on average, lasts 1 day of the great year.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that a thing? Okay, so I already talked about how they had their real day, their sacred calendar of 360, and then their secular calendar of 365, with their 5 unlucky days. So they had this divine year, this proper year, and because they believed there was some sort of disaster that had added 5 days to the calendar, some great catastrophe. And no one ever teaches you about this, even though it's out in the open for anyone that cares to read it, except here on maps where you learn the real stuff. Okay, now hold on, I get sidetracked because it's so much. Let's talk about the diameter of the Earth. Is the diameter at the poles equal to the diameter at the equator?
No.
Take a guess, yes or no. No, correct. Because otherwise, why would I ask the question? Actually, the diameter at the equator is about 26 miles greater. Mm-hmm. Because there's like a bulge because of the moon. It makes like a flywheel, which is very important. That stabilizes the motion of the Earth. Without that bulge, Earth would be a very unhealthy place for us to live. Because it would be like, they'd be spinning sort of wildly. Right, just like you need a top, or a flywheel, you need a little bit of a weight distributed on the edges. Same principle. Which makes you, again, marvel at how well put together the system is. Because these things are happening in these ways. When you begin to do this, you're like, oh, of course some great intelligence put this together.
Well, I just had a vision in my mind of a top spinning on a table, and it's spinning, right?
Right.
But then it's also proceeding as it is the point of the top makes little circles on the table.
Yes.
It just and then it can revolve also around a point. So you can have precession, revolution, and rotation all happening in a top.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So the well, let me come back to I'll come back to the pole thing in a minute. Okay. But or the diameter of the Earth. Because I got sidetracked because I was talking about other cultures and how they did this. Mm-hmm. So these other cultures, not just the Mesopotamian ones, same thing. So, and And my theory personally is that sometime in the ancient past, the world had some sort of let's just go full hog and call it something like Atlantis.
Yeah.
That was like advanced, but there was some terrible thing that happened, which they all agreed was some sort of great flood, which Randall Carlson says probably a comet impact on the North Pole ending the last ice age. Right? Like, boom. And people say, well, where's the water? It's right there where it is now. It just used to be there wasn't as much water on the earth. It was locked up in the ice.
Gotcha.
Right? And where do people build their cities? Always, especially today, on the coastline. All of the most populous places on earth are on the coast. And so if dramatically over a course of hours, the coastline rises several hundred feet, it's a problem.
Yeah.
It's a big problem. But in the Rig Veda of Hinduism, same thing. And again, because they knew man was the measure of all things. Because these numbers I'm telling you, I will show you, they're also in your body. Like these proportions, like your thumb is about 1/12. The knuckle of your thumb from the knuckle to the tip averages out among people to be about 1/12 of your foot. Like this is the Da Vinci and the Vitruvian Man. That's what that's all about. Like these ratios are in your body, and so they would say, "Oh, man is the measure of all things. Like we are the yardstick of the cosmos." Right? You're not an insignificant thing. You are the yardstick of the whole universe. And because they believed this, it was natural to anthropomorphize their systems of measurement. Right? Which is why you have weird things like in the Bible, numbers represented by beasts with 7 heads and 7 crowns with 7 crowns on the 7 heads and all that sort of stuff. Anytime, a good rule of thumb is anytime an ancient scripture of any variety gets hyper specific about the numbers of things, like when they're talking about like the number of people that are saved, or like the measurements of the holy city, or the measurements of Noah's Ark, it may be literal, but it also has a symbolic meaning. At the very least, it's both. Yeah. Maybe just symbolic, maybe at the very least, it's both. All right, so in the Rig Veda, there's this passage where, so it says this: "Let the Brahmin hear the praise we utter. This has the 4-horned buffalo emitted." So it's a buffalo 4 horns. This sounds a lot like the language of the beast in the Revelations, like this number encoded in this anthropomorphic figure. "This hath the 4-horned buffalo emitted. 4 are his horns, 3 are the feet that bear him. His heads are 2. His hands 7 in number." Now hands are the multiplier. Those are the zeros. Why? Because hands are the things that multiply stuff. Like hands literally multiply things. They take seeds, they plant it in the ground, they make more seeds. So the hands are the zeros. So what you have is 4 are his horns, 3 are his feet that bear him, and his heads are 2. So 4, 3, 2, 7 zeros behind it. So what you get is 4, 3, 2, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0 years. 4,320 years, which in Hinduism is the total length of the combination of kalpas, which is there are 4 ages, right? 4 ages in Hinduism. And basically a kalpa is like what we might call an eon, or like a tremendous age, like a tremendous age of the universe. But keep in mind that number 432 is the same number of seconds in a half full day, the length of a day or a night. And again, sums to 9. So they're describing an even higher order of time than the great year, perhaps, like this Kalpa cycle, which they're saying is on the same pattern. Okay? And that number 4,320, suspiciously close to the current scientific estimation of the age of the planet at 4,500,000,000. 4,320, 4,500,000,000.
Okay.
Isn't that suspicious?
Perhaps.
Isn't that suspiciously close? Isn't that weird? Okay, so
although I could see some Jack Parsons like character pulling that out of
for sure
of Hinduism and saying, "Ha ha, I'm going to use this number."
It could 100% always be skeptical.
Yeah.
Right. But this is why I say I'm helping the flat Earth people and everybody. I'm helping Milo's husband. Where you're helping people figure out where they need to live. We're helping them know about the Earth. I think you can have your cake and eat it too. Like, just maybe all the religious people who are uncomfortable with the age of the Earth or the old Earth hypothesis or whatever, maybe the universe and time itself is some sort of extension of the eternity, which was always and will always exist, the eternal. But that this moment we're in is some sort of fall into history that we're coming out of. Like it says in Proverbs, I think 23, probably not, but somewhere in there it says, "The Lord possessed me at the beginning of his work, the first of his acts of old. Ages ago I was set up at the first, before the beginning of the earth. When there was no depths I was brought forth, when there was no springs abounding with water, before the mountains had been shaped, before the hills I was brought forth. Before he made the earth with its fields, or the first of the dust of the world, when he established the heavens I was there. When he drew a circle upon the face of the deep, when he made firm the skies above, when he established the fountains of the deep, and assigned the sea to its limits, so that the waters might not transgress his command, when he marked out the foundations of the earth, then I was beside him like a master workman. I was his daily delight, rejoicing before him always, rejoicing in his inhabited world, and my delight was the sons of men." And that's the wisdom, the divine wisdom speaking.
Mm-hmm.
So divine wisdom is speaking of like this great before time. Like he's delighting with the children of men, but also there's no dust in the world yet. The mountains have not been formed. It's a weird passage.
Yeah.
But you got to think about it. So there's like an eternity. It almost sounds like there's an eternity before the present, like an eternity before history.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that was Hinduism in the Rig Veda. But do we find the same thing elsewhere? Of course we do. In Sumeria, they had a tradition where they talked about the 10 pre-Diluvian kings, or the 10 kings that reigned before the flood.
Okay.
Those 10 kings were Alaros, who reigned for 36,000 years, Alaporos, 10,800, Amalon, 46,000. I won't bother you with all of them, but basically it's a lot of these repeats of these same numbers: 648, 36, 10, 108. Like Alaporos is 10800.
When you say you're saying their names are numerologically.
No, that's their name.
Okay.
And then each of them is assigned a number of years that he reigned.
Oh, gotcha.
Right, which is like 36,000 years or whatever. Like Alaros was said to reign 36,000 years in the Sumerian pre-Diluvian kings. Okay.
Right.
Right. So so one thing you note about that, one thing you note about that from the beginning is that, are they really claiming a dude lived and was king for 6,480 years? Or is this symbolic? Right? That's like but so if you add their reigns together, add them all up, 432,000. 432. Exact same as number with a different number of zeros tagged on it as the Hindu combination of kalpas. So it's almost like the Sumerians had 10 subdivisions of the kalpas. Like they had 10 and the Hindus had 4, but they're talking about the same thing.
I gotcha. Yeah.
Right? It's crazy. It's like you begin to go, oh, wait a minute. And then you think like, I mean, but I was talking about, do they really think the guy lived 64,800 years? It's a strange thing that all of the cultures in the world said that in the pre-flood world, people lived a long time.
Yeah.
Like not that long, but like Methuselah, 969, Lamech, 777.
Right.
But then you say, well, okay, yeah, but is that also a form of symbolism? Like Methuselah, 969, that's already you got the 9 and the 6 in there upside down. That's sort of, and it's a 3. That's sort of a weird, and then 777 for Lamech.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's literal. Maybe it's symbolic. Maybe it's both. But like, I have trouble thinking that when they go through the trouble of saying, and he lived 777 years, that they're not trying to tell you something, right? That could just be me.
No, I can get where you're getting that. I mean, there's a logic to it.
Yeah. So, again, the Mayans. Again, we go to the Mayans. They had, what did their sacred calendar had? It had something called a Baktun, which was, drumroll, 144,000 days.
Okay.
It's the same numbers across the oceans. A Katun, which was a smaller, was 200 days, 72. The Tun was 360 days. Same numbers, same symbolism, smaller scale than what we see in the Hinduism, but it's the same thing over and over again. It's the same. Now you might say, okay, sure, Sumo, but this is all just like a human convention, man. Like, we could have designed it other ways. It was just arbitrary. It's just lucky it works out like that. It's like we could have used anything, like the metric system. Boo, hiss, bad. Metric system. Spit on it. I hate the metric system for a number of reasons. One is it's elitist, because the folk measurements are what people actually can use. Like, I can actually eyeball, because if you notice, a foot, like 12 inches, is set up so you can. It's always in increasing halves. Like, okay, a foot, 6 inches, 3. You're always, because 12 is divisible 4 times and 10 is only divisible 2. So it's much better for head math. And another thing, if you ever want to get at the Europores, now we know on this show that the moon landing didn't happen, but a lot of them believe it. As you say, well, there's two kinds of countries: those that use the metric system and those that have been to the moon.
There you go.
And then you just attack them with it.
That'll get them riled up.
Yeah, they hate it. Okay, so you say, but we could have used any system. Like, that's just, it's nice. It's interesting that those numbers pop up again, but you could have started with any divisions whatsoever. No, I say to you, nay. Nay, I say. Nay, listener. I scream at you from my bathtub like Archimedes, who discovered his principle. I scream Eureka at you. No. Consider the following examples, of which there are many, but I will only give you some, because we only have so much time. And what I'm going to try to get across to you is that these systems of measurement are touching something real. They're actually, in the realist sense of the word, sacred, and they're touching on something divine. Because let's take the sun. Okay. What do you suppose is the radius of the stupid sun? 432,000 miles. For the exact same number as the length of a kalpa and the total reign of the pre-Diluvian kings. I'm not making that up. And the number of seconds in a day. That's what it is. It's crazy. Why is that so? It's the same number.
So?
It's the
Why
same
is that
number.
so?
It's the same number.
So somebody had to know something.
Exactly.
That we cannot account for them having known it.
Exactly. Or, hear me out. That they got their systems of measurement from the human body, and that the human body is actually the distillation of the cosmos. And if you work up, it all is the same ratios all the way up. Like, when you are measuring with a cubit, you are using something that is basically what the cosmos was built on. Like, the relationship between the ratio of, in some way, of your elbow to the tip of your finger, and then like the length of your leg and the length that you walk, is like, those ratios represent the sacred numbers which make up the sacred shapes from which the universe was built. Like, maybe they didn't know, but they just started with the human body, and the human body, man, is the measure of all things, and God is incarnate, and God is, like, we are, like, do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay. It's the same thing. The sun is the radius of the sun is 432,000 miles. And this is why it's actually demonic, the metric system, and why it was brought up by the French revolutionaries and all of their horror and their reign of terror, because they want another angle to try and separate you from God. That's why I said the U.S. has retained its religiosity. In some sense, I don't know how big of a factor this has, but it's some factor because we've kept using feet, which is good, and miles.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so, yeah. So the radius of the sun is the same as the number of the Hindu kalpas and the pre-Diluvian Sumerian ages of the reigns of the 10 kings and the number of seconds in a day. And the mile, what is the origin of the mile?
Wait, stop.
Yes,
stop.
yes.
You said the number of seconds in a day equals the radius of the sun?
Yeah, same number.
You didn't hit that one before. That's kind of
I thought I did.
Man.
Yeah, radius of the sun is also, the 432 is the number of seconds in a day. It's the number, it's the radius of the sun, it's the age of the Hindu kalpas, and it's the age of the Sumerian kings that ruled before the flood.
That's a doozy.
And the mile, what's the origin of the mile? Mile comes from the Latin mil, meaning 1,000, and it refers to 1,000 paces. A pace averaging 5.28 feet, which is why a mile is 5,280 feet. Now that's unreasonable if you use the modern definition of pace, which we say paces. We use it sort of interchangeably with steps.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't move 5.28 feet across the floor with a single step.
I was about to say, my gait ain't quite like that.
Right. Okay. But the Roman pace, the Latin passus, was the full stride of a man taking 2 steps, 1 by each foot.
Ah, okay. Yep.
So what it is, it's a completion of a biomechanical cycle. You begin in a position, you take 2 steps until you're in the exact same position.
Oh, yeah.
And that was a pace, because it's all cyclical, right? They were
Right.
thinking in terms of cycles. I had to get more hot water, I'm sorry. So, the step of a man, by ancient reckoning, you give 1,000 of them, gives you the mile, which gives you the radius of that unit gives you the radius of the sun in the same number as the kalpas and the seconds in a day and the Diluvian king. It just makes your head explode. Because you're like, what? What's going on? Like, this is what I told you. It's insane, and the flat earth people aren't crazy enough. Like, they're not not even, you got to get on my level. And my level is square, because I'm like the square with right angles. Right? Okay, the moon has a radius of 1,080 miles. Again, using this mile number, which is the same number of angles as the equilateral triangle, which of course gives it a diameter of 2,160 miles, which is the same as the measure of angles of a cube, one of the 5 Platonic solids.
And all these I've been keeping track, they all made 9.
Every one of them, it's all 9 all the way down.
Yeah.
Which may be where the 666 comes from, because it may be 9 upside down. Like, I haven't figured that out yet. It may be that they're like saying it's the inversion of God's plan, like his plan was everything, and then if you flip it over, I'm not sure. Don't quote me. We're still working on that one. That one's still in R&D. Okay, but so back to the moon. Let's skip for a minute. Let's go to Noah. No, wait. Let's do both. Noah and the moon. Noah and the moon. All right. The moon in ancient cultures was not uncommonly considered to be a boat. Symbolically. An ark, if you will. Okay. And in some myths of Noah's Ark, the ark was literally a cube. Like in some versions, when God or the gods tell Noah to build a figure, a boat, this many cubits this way, this many that way, you read it, you're like, wait a minute, that's a cube. It's a cube up and down, and it's the same size. Bit weird that the diameter of the moon in miles is 2,160 miles, which is the same as the measure of angles. Huh?
You said the radius first, and then you said the diameter. Which one?
I'm sorry. The diameter. The diameter of the moon, 2,160 miles, right? Which is the same as the number of angles in a cube. And then somehow the ancients said that the moon was an ark, and that God told Noah to build a cubical ark.
Yeah. Okay.
right? And it's a bit weird because it's like the moon. Isn't that thought provoking? Isn't that extremely thought provoking? Like, what are they trying to get out there? Like,
Right.
listen, kids, don't be fooled. We're a species with amnesia. Like, for real, are they identifying the moon with Noah's Ark, and what does that mean? I don't know why they would do that. I'm not claiming that the moon that Noah had a spaceship or something. Although at this point, who knows? But but it's weird that they all were like, oh yeah, the moon is like this boat. It's like the boat that God used to go across the sea of the night or whatever, and its diameter in miles is the same sum as that of a cube in degrees, and that Noah figures are told to build a cube. Don't know.
Interesting. Okay.
So I left off the poles for a minute. Let's go back to the poles. As stated, the diameter of the Earth is different if you measure equatorially or pole to pole because of the bulge. And we need the bulge because of the flywheel, and we'd all be dead. But roughly it's 7,900 miles pole to pole and 7,926 miles across the equator. 26 miles difference. On average, though, more or less, it's 7,920 miles. And it's almost that exactly if you measure from the Tropic of Cancer to the Tropic of Capricorn. It's almost that exactly.
Okay.
Which means the radius of the Earth is 3,960 miles. Now, those numbers, so far that we've seen, those are not numbers that have popped up for us yet. But the ancients were very concerned about those numbers, that the Earth was 7,920 miles in diameter and 3,960 miles in radius. How do we know that? We know that because of the Great Pyramids. And what I'm telling you now is the Great Pyramid is sort of a symbolic scale model of the Earth in a ratio of 1 to 4,320, 43,200. Again, that Again, that 432 number, right? The number, the radius of the sun, the seconds in a day, the ages of the Kalpa, the sum of the great kings of the pre-Diluvian things. It's for the 432 number. And that if you scale up the Great Pyramid, if you were to scale up the Great Pyramid, 43200, same number with 2 extra zeros on the end, that many times, you basically have the distance from its base to its pinnacle would be the same as the height of the Earth from the equator to the North Pole. Almost on the nose.
Huh.
Here I'm talking about the Great Pyramid of Cheops, which is it's a scale model of the Earth. It's at a 1 to 40,200 ratio. What do I mean? Okay, this is a bit complex, so strap in. It's not actually, but it's just, you got to think for a minute. Get those of you with aphantasia who can't imagine things in your mind, I'm sorry. Please get a piece of paper and follow along.
All right, give me 1 second.
Yeah. Okay. Also, get in your bathtub. Get a little. You ever have a nice dinner in your bathtub? So good.
I haven't had dinner in the bathtub.
It's so good. I've got my
snacks.
I need to have my. Hold on. I got my Sobeys back. Isn't that so nice? I did.
I'm really happy for you.
This was a problem for me. I got to put my mic down for a second. So this has been a problem for me. Our listeners know I've been in a Sobey problem for a while. Because my local bottling company stopped making it because of COVID. I don't know why they had to stop making my drink because people were getting sick. But they did, and they kept making Pepsi. And I'm mad about that. And I offered to help, and they didn't respond. But other bottling companies around the country have not stopped making it. So I ordered these from a dude in California. At an extremely high rate.
So you've got your fix now. You don't need this 8-ounce bottle of tinctures.
No, just send me the tinctures anyway. I've been taking herbals because this thing had herbals, and I was feeling off. And then I realized, I was like, why am I feeling off? And my wife was like, well, you know that Sobe you used to drink had like 1 billion different herbs in it. I'm not sure if they were in enough to do anything.
Right.
But I thought maybe that's it. So then I started just slamming herbs. But now I have them back. And I'm also taking the herbs. So this is why you get this episode with me in the bathtub.
It is a little supercharged tonight.
Because I am on some stuff. All of it natural and legal. but that's why I'm in the bathtub. But anyway, so I do like this bathtub. It's sort of thermally insulated in a way, like more than others. Like the water's staying warm for a longer time than my bathtub at home.
Yeah.
Which is nice, I guess. Where was I? Oh yeah, you know how much I had to pay? Like $40 a case.
Oh man,
almost $4 a bottle, and I bought like 4 cases. This is gonna have to be my routine until COVID ends. Anyway, the poles. No, the pyramid.
Yeah,
the pyramid. So you've got parallels and meridians, right? Easy peasy. Parallels run parallel to the equator. Imagine bands, like rings. You draw a ring at any place around the Earth, parallel to the equator. That's a parallel.
Yep.
Okay. And above the Arctic Circle, when people talk about the Arctic Circle, that's all the land above the parallel that's about 66 degrees from the equator. And that's when you're in the Arctic Circle. That's when it gets cold. Meridians are the other way. They go north to south. And if you want to find your local meridian, what you do, and this is your local meridian was where the ancients would have measured the sky from to do all their astrology. So if you want to do your local astrology, walk outside, look directly north, turn around, look exactly south, and then cast an arc across the sky in your mind between those 2 points, and directly straight up above your head on that arc is the zenith, your local meridian. Boom, right there. Got it. You can measure all astronomical motion in relation to your local meridian. All right. Subtle difference between the parallels and the meridians. And I'm telling you this because I need to show you how the ancients demonstrated they also understood the shape of the Earth with a high degree of accuracy, including its flywheel bulge, is that parallels are always perfect circles. But the meridians, because they go over that bulge in the center, are not. And that means as you walk along a parallel, east to west, every mile you go is if you stay on the same parallel, every mile you go in distance on the surface of the Earth is the same degree of arc through the parallel. Okay. But it's not the same on a meridian. Changes a little bit. Because it's not exactly what Neil deGrasse Tyson likes to call an oblate spheroid. Sometimes you walk across the surface of the Earth a mile and you've changed some amount of arc. Sometimes you walk a mile and you've changed a little bit different amount of arc. Just a little bit. Not too much, just a little bit different. Right? And the meridians, the parallels never touch because they're parallel, but the meridians all converge to a point, like on the top of a pyramid, at the poles. Right? Okay, so so the pyramid. We have to do a little bit of back on the pyramid because the outer layer of the pyramid you can still see portions of, but over the thousands of years, vandals have come and stripped it. Yep. Because originally the pyramid was all white with a gold cap, and the outer layers were inscribed all over with hieroglyphics that told the story of humanity and passed down its knowledge. This is what they say. Is that originally the pyramids were covered like a living time capsule and said, here is the knowledge from before the flood. And we're putting it on this giant monument and we're covering it, and there it is. Right? This is what we preserve. These are like their claim was that Noah or their Noah figures or their multiple Noahs had kept scrolls on whatever their version of the ark was and brought it with them. And they had them. And they're like, here, we're going to copy these scrolls on this giant monument for all to see that they'll be there. And of course, people being people, were like, no, I need to go get my Jack in the Box. And if I can sell that brick for enough money to get my hamburger, I will. And that's what people did. Which is why, arguably, the flood was deserved. So, the pyramid, the base of the pyramid has, so you have to do a little bit, you have to sort of like say, okay, but how was it when it was originally, and you can work that out, and I won't bore you with the details, but the base of the pyramid has two sizes. One is with socle, and the other is without socle. And the socle is just sort of this foundation. It's the Egyptian word socle. I don't know why it's called the socle. But imagine there's like a base called the socle, and then there's like the pyramid itself that it sits on. Okay, so the perimeter of the pyramid base without the socle, 3,023.139 feet. The perimeter of the pyramid with the socle, 3,043.433 feet. Okay, very slightly different. The pyramid is just a little bit, and the height of the pyramid is 481 feet, with a base above bedrock of 482.75 feet.
Okay.
Angle of the triangle at the base, 51 degrees. Turns out the ratio of the pyramid is 11:7. So the ratio of base over height is 11/7, almost exactly. So, imagine you're walking along the earth 1 degree of latitude, then you turn up, or the other way, and you go north-south, and you walk 1 degree longitude. And because the earth is a ball, and you're laying a square down on a ball, that comes out to be, and again, like I said, the meridians are slightly uneven compared to the parallels. And so if you're doing it at the equator where this is the highest, if you lay that square out upon the earth, it actually comes to 68.7 miles north to south, 69.17 miles east to west. Slight difference, right? That's the distortion of the earth. That's a measure. The distortion between those two numbers is a measure of the earth's not quite perfect baldness.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? What if you did the same thing instead of the equator, but you did it at the exact latitude and longitude of where the pyramid sits?
Okay.
Like you lay that square out. And instead of going a whole arc, you go 1/4 of a minute of degree. All right? You go 1/4 of a minute of degree east to west, 1/4 of a minute degree north to south, right? You get a latitude distance of 3,043 feet, which is the perimeter of the pyramid's base with socle. You get a longitude of 3,022 feet, which is the perimeter of the pyramid's base without the socle.
Okay, so the dimensions of the pyramid demonstrate that they had a high degree of high accuracy of knowledge about the shape of the earth.
Not only a high degree of the shape of the earth, but they knew how much it was deformed exactly at their position. So they were saying, not only are we aware of the shape of the earth, but we know we know exactly where we are on it. They're telling you in frightening detail, we know exactly what the shape of the globe is. We know exactly how big it is. We know exactly its shape and curvature, and we're pinpointing ourselves on the planet. Right? Moreover, you take the height of the pyramid above the bedrock, 482.75, and you multiply it by the sacred number, 43,200, which is again the radius of the sun, the age of the kalpas and all that. You get 20,000 something feet, which turns out to be 3,949.834 miles. Right? So if you multiply the height of the pyramid above the bedrock by the sacred number of the 43,200, which we call the radius of the sun, right? You get 3,949.834 miles. The satellite survey of the Earth, which is what we use now, that they performed in 1972, the World Grid Survey, placed the Earth's radius at 3,949.8934 miles. So a difference of 0.06 miles, 313 feet.
Goodness gracious.
So they, if you multiply the height of the pyramid by the sacred number of the kalpas, of the pre-Diluvian kings, of the number of minutes in a day, of the number of the radius of the sun in miles, you multiply that, you get the radius of the Earth that we measured in 1972 with satellites to within 313 feet, 0.06 off.
Wow.
How did they know? Do you see what I'm saying? And so then you begin to take seriously, maybe it was covered with the hieroglyphics from Atlantis. And they did know these things. Maybe somebody, apparently before the catastrophe, whatever it was, however it worked out, apparently actual Atlanteans maybe had their own satellites. Like, like for real. Like, because how else do they know about the great year? That it's 25,920 years. How do they know the shape of the earth? How do they know the radius of the sun? How did this happen? It's crazy. And they're like time capsules hidden in plain sight. By the way, the Parthenon in Greece is also similarly tells you where it is.
So is there an idea here that pre-Diluvian ancients knew a disaster was coming and did this to preserve their knowledge, or the knowledge was preserved through the disaster and then memorialized in these great monolithic structures?
That is a great question, and take your pick.
Okay.
I'm not sure. Either they knew it was coming and tried to preserve it in these great structures, or there was some remnant somehow. Either some amount of people survived, or like the document survived with the Noah figure. Because there were Babylonian kings that claimed that they had scrolls from Noah's Ark.
Okay.
They said, yeah, we've got that. And it makes sense. Like, Noah's on this thing, and maybe he was like, I'll take some reading.
Yeah.
Or whatever, you know? And so he put it up there, and then it just...
Yeah, if I knew the Earth was going to be destroyed and I got to pick what made it through, I think I would grab some books.
Exactly. And so you think, well, maybe, you know, and then... Anyway, let's go. I know this is a long show. Milo's husband messed me up, and I'm in the back. It's his fault.
Are we? If we're heading into a wrap up here, let me just do a quick station break for a little production, okay?
Okay, and then we'll do. Okay, what's a station break? Oh, you mean like a bathroom? Well,
no,
see,
no,
if you were
I
already
literally just need to stop the record. Hang on, I'm stopping now.
Okay. Are we back?
And we're back. Okay.
Okay, so see, if you were just doing it from the bathroom, you could just go and you wouldn't have to stop. This is next level podcasting.
Yeah.
It's next level podcasting.
I'm here sitting in diapers like an idiot.
Exactly. So I talked a little bit about how the Hebrew letters and the ancient Greek letters, and also most of the letters in the world used to also be the numbers.
Yep.
Break that down a bit, and then I think we've given our listeners enough to grapple with for the week.
No, I'm gonna have to listen to this show 3 times.
I know it's a lot, and Randall Carlson makes some great videos. Go listen to some Randall Carlson stuff. He has some great visuals to go along with this stuff. He's got he's a bit drier, perhaps than I, because he's a guy that has receipts. Like he shows his work.
Right.
I never show my work. Because I move at a very rapid pace, and by the time, because I'm like idea, and by the time I'm on idea 10, I sort of forgot where I got idea 1 from, right? And so that's just my style. Like I said, God has called me to be a hermit in a bathtub with lavender soaps and to move quickly. Yeah. He called St. Anthony to be a hermit in a cave and move slowly, and he called Randall Carlson to do his work not in a cave or a bathtub, but just also very meticulously.
Right.
So it may be a bit slow, but if you want to like really get graphs and like pictures and like here's some math, he's got it for you. Okay.
Cool.
Okay. So back to the numbers being letters being numbers. Ancient Hebrew, Aleph, first letter, basically A, also 1. Okay. Beth, B is 2, and these things are also had, as I said, symbolic representations with them. Like B, Beth, it's not symbolic so much as it just was the word, because they would like have a letter, just like we have A is the letter A and also is a word like A.
Right.
Like a rock. Or I is also me, like the first person.
Sure.
But every letter of theirs was its own word.
Okay.
And so the letter in Hebrew, Beth, which was B, and the number 2 was also house, which is why Jesus was born in Bethlehem, because Bethlehem means house of bread, and Christ is the bread of heaven. See, this all goes together. It's so well knit when you know that you're like, oh my goodness, this is something, this is crazy. All right. So Gimel, the third one, or Gimli, maybe it's like, I don't know the pronunciation. It might be Gimel, or it might be the dwarf from Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
Was G, and 3, right? And so because the Hebrews went A, B, G, because they were weird. And it would do that up to the 10th letter, Yod, which was I or Y. But then the 11th letter would jump to, that's when you start counting by 10. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10. Then the 11th letter is 20. Then you count from that to 100. And then at the 21st letter, now you're counting by hundreds.
Okay.
And then that way, it's sort of like Roman numerals. And that way you could build up. So if you wanted to write like 31, or let's say 21, you would say Kaf Alpha. Because you'd have the 20 and then the 1, right?
Gotcha. Yeah.
Makes sense. So and that way you build up large numbers. Greek is the same. Ancient Greek is the same. A lot of these are the same, and they had these same. Like I said, they had had a symbolic connection because they were not because they believed man was the measure of all things. Pieces of man and his tools and the things he used every day were associated with his numbers and his letters. And so, like Aleph, I said that Beth, the symbol of Beth was house. Aleph, the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, was ox. In Germanic and Norse runes, you have the elder Futhark and the younger Futhark, which I know we're all familiar with the Futharks.
Yes.
The German Futhark and the Norse Futhark, the elder Futhark, the first rune Fehu means cow. Oh. The first letter of Hebrew Aleph is ox. First rune of the Germanic runes is Fehu, which means cow. What are the odds that's a coincidence? I don't think high.
Sort of interesting.
Yeah, and these things, these connections, like they just pop. And if you see one of them, then you start to think, oh, it's a coincidence. When they start piling up, you're like, oh, okay, there's a picture emerging here. Okay, So because the letters are also the numbers, and like I said, you add the words and you reduce them down to get like the number, like we said, 108 is 1 plus 0 plus 8 is 9, right?
Right.
Okay, so they would do that too with larger words. The Greek word for truth, which in roughly badly pronounced Greek, is aletheia.
Yep.
Which is spelled eta, alpha, lambda, eta, theta, epsilon, iota, alpha, which in numerical form is 8 plus 1 plus 30 plus 8 plus 9 plus 50 plus 10 plus 1, which is 72. 7 plus 2 is 9, because truth equals 9, because truth is square. It's a square. It's level. You see?
Yeah.
You see what they're getting at? It's also 72 is the number of minutes in a half day, the number of inches in a cubic foot. It's square. Cubic foot. It's the truth is square.
Yeah.
Right? And another example, Revelations 14, 1 through 4. And I looked, and lo, a lamb stood on Mount Zion, with him 144,000, having his father's name written upon their head. The phrase 144,000, if you add up the alpha characters that make that up, sum to 432. Same number as the radius of the sun in miles, the Hindu kalpa, the summation of the reigns of the pre-Sumerian kings, the seconds in a day is the same number. Again, the number of square foot. It's always it's always the same number. It adds to 9. 144. It's always the same. It's level. It's square. It's created by a master designer. Yeah. And by the way, a lamb stood on the mountain is, of course, symbolizing Christ. It's also probably connected to the astrological sign of Aries, the ram. Like when you read all this stuff about the lady and the dragon and stuff, it's like, well, there's the lady in the sky, like Venus. Yeah. And there's Drago, the constellation. Right. And then there's the ram. Like you look up at the ram, you look up at the mountain, Mount Zion is probably like, this is all connected. And it says that right in the beginning. This is why I don't understand why Christianity has abandoned all this. Because it says, like, on page 1, let the things of the heaven be for signs and seasons. Mm-hmm. Page 1, it says, I'm going to use these for these purposes. And they're like, whatever. We're just going to give that to the ladies that can't do yoga properly. It's like, come on. Like, you got to, this is why, like, you can, and it's good for your soul, because it's like, oh, no, it is not true that you're a nothing accident.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're actually the measure of the cosmos, and that's why God is capable of being in you now and why he was incarnate as one of you.
When's the last time you heard a metric system using astronomer give you great encouragement and inspiration about the purposefulness of your existence? You know,
exactly.
As opposed to Carl Sagan, a bunch of garbage.
I know, they just want to put everything down, and the meter comes from nothing. It's just made up. At least the foot is, and the miles based on paces. It's based on your body, which is the benchmark of the universe. You are the thing by which the cosmos measures. Am I square?
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's sort of why, like, it's the truth incarnate. It's 72. It adds up to 72. It's the same as the cubic inches in the square. It's the same because it's square. The word Jerusalem, spelled in Greek, sums to 864. 8 plus 6 plus 4 equals 18. 1 plus 8 equals 9. 864 is the number of seconds, is the same without the last 3 zeros. The number of seconds in the full day instead of the half day, and is the diameter of the sun. The Holy Ghost in New Testament Greek, the original language, sums to 1080, which is the angles of the equilateral triangle, which also sums to 9, which is also maybe why it has the connection to a Holy Trinity, because the triangle's 3 sides. And these connections go on for miles. You can literally talk about this all day. And it's because the people that were putting these languages together were constructing it on the realization that they believed, probably rightly, that the universe hung together on proportions, ratios, mathematical shapes, but it was also tied to language.
Yeah.
You know? And here's a classic. We'll end on this one.
Okay.
Revelation 13:18. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 600, threescore, 3 score, of course, is 320, 60, 666. Well, the orbital velocity of the Earth is exactly 66,600 miles, 66600. Almost to a T. It goes around the sun at an orbit of 66600. What does that mean? Heck if I know.
Yeah, for real, man.
It's sort of scary given all that we've seen. But like that stuff is just, it's real. That's what I'm trying to get to people to see. Like it's a real. One more actually, because this one's actually even more interesting. Revelations 21, New Jerusalem is described as again a cube. Like you read it, it's 12,000 furlongs on each side, and you're like, what is a furlong? Right, furlong. A furlong is the English counterpart of the Greek stade, which is the length of a lap around a stadium, where the horses would run a race. Right, so like a stade is a lap around the stadium. How long is a furlong? 660 feet. Again, there's that 66 number. It's not quite the same because it doesn't have the extra 6, though, so it doesn't really count. If you have extra zeros, same. All right. How much is that in inches? 660 feet times 12, 7,920, which is the diameter of the Earth in miles.
Whoa.
The cube of the holy city of Jerusalem is the same. It is the same. Each side is the same number in feet as is the diameter of the Earth in miles.
Wow.
So what they're saying there probably is that New Jerusalem, the holy city, encompasses the whole Earth.
Mm-hmm.
The holy city and the new Earth are one and the same. And you don't get that if you don't like have this numerological astro like you don't see the same meaning.
Yeah, that's really
it changes like the whole thing. So I don't know, man. This is just what I think about when I'm in my bathtub.
My mind is completely broken right now.
One more. Then we'll be done. I promise. I'm sorry. I keep. Okay. This is one more connection to this number, the holy number. There was this ancient Greek mode of musical tuning called Phrygian mode, which is I think sounds nicer than what we use, but it's just take your pick on musical tuning. But an ancient Greek tuning, middle C, goes from in this Phrygian mode, 432 hertz. Again, the 432 number, radius, the sun, the Kalpas, the Hindu, the Sumerian kings. 432 to 864. The diameter of the sun. So an octave goes from the radius of the sun to the diameter of the sun.
That's nuts.
And does that have anything to do with the idea of singing a new song in the new heavens and new earth? Like singing a new song, like you're raised to a higher vibration. This is where I get a little, but maybe just spitballing here.
Yeah.
Like, is that what that means? I don't know. But you can go down this there's still so much R&D to be done in this space that you can feel free to jump in, everyone. Milo's husband, you won't have a lot. You're going to be in a down time. You're going to have to move on, find someone else, hopefully a woman this time. Trust me, it'll work out better.
Yeah.
You already started with one. You have a kid with one. That's probably why you turned gay, because it was such a horrible breakup. I get it. Women can be brutal. But in the meantime, why don't you engage in astrology and numerology? Get yourself a bathtub with some lavender soap. Get yourself a Sobe from California for $4 a bottle, and just go to town. And you can come on this show, and we'll all be in bathtubs. I'll be in my bathtub. Smokestack will be in his bathtub, and you be in your bathtub, and maybe Milo will be in another bathtub in a different room of the house, and we will all talk together, and that'll be fantastic. And our listeners will listen in their bathtubs. And they'll be just bathtubs all the way down, like the turtles on the earth.
It'll require a little of advanced planning, but I think the bathtub show idea has some merit.
I need more hot water. I'm going to be here in here for at least another hour.
Dude, long hauler.
Well, I haven't done a lot of actual bathing during this show. I've just been sitting in the water. I need to actually get clean now.
Okay.
Because I got sweaty talking so fast.
You're pretty fired up.
I've been eating a lot of herbs. I can't tell you how much ginseng I've been ingesting. I don't know what all ginseng's supposed to do for you.
Take it easy, man. There is so much. There's too much, you know.
Right, but I feel great.
Well, you sound great.
Thanks. I'm coming for you, Tiffany Dover Potts. I know what you did.
No, take it easy. Take it easy.
I know what she did. I know what she did.
It's a family show. Come on.